Hey folks, today I'm going to be doing another TLDR video, this time on the talkative try with EHG talk on itemization. There's a lot to go through here, so I'm going to try and be somewhat brief. As always, if you do like these sort of videos, please consider leaving a like on the video, and I will keep doing more of them. Anyway, let's jump into it. The first thing we saw was EHG's solution to endgame slamming.
We are now allowing you to select one affix as a guarantee, as long as the dungeon that you do is at least tier 2. So I got lucky and I have a 2 LP red ring here, so I can just guarantee the int there. And then I get something extra cool. Now there is a very, very low chance when you're making legendaries to get critical success with Eternity Cache 2, which then just takes another affix from the item. So this could have been 3LB. As with just getting legendary potential on uniques, the more powerful the item is, the less likely you are to crit success. And it's very rare to begin with.
One more interesting thing I'd like to note is that this change will provide a much larger relative benefit for extremely high LP level items. So just as an example, a T7 red ring with this change is now at least 4 times as accessible as it was in 1.1. Because before you had to farm the red ring with LP, then you have your T7 and you have a 1 in 4 chance of success. Now it's guaranteed, so 4 times as accessible. For items that are lower LP level, where a 2 or even a 3 LP is realistic, you still do have a RNG component. So for a 2 LP, previously you would be a 1 in 6 to get 2 desired affixes, and now it's a 1 in 3. So instead of 4 times more accessible, it's roughly 2 times more accessible. What I'm basically saying in a very roundabout way is that I think that this change will probably result in a lot more people integrating extremely rare high LP level items into their builds. So that's items like Red Ring, Ravenous Void, Orion's Eye, and stuff like that. I expect these types of items to be more prevalent in the builds of normal players. The next bit of info we got was on the Weaver crafting.
So when you complete tombs or cemeteries, or some of the woven echo versions of these, you'll see this little thingy here on my left side. And this is where you get to place your class-specific idols. You simply put it here. I'm in a cemetery, so I have 2 uses. If this was on a tomb, it would be only be 1. And I'll just enchant it. It'll give it a new, usually a low tier. So this gave me a tier 2 enchant. These can go all the way to tier 7. You can use Rune of Weaving that will then convert some of that. In our case, it put all of it, and it just upgraded. So now I have a tier 6 of that. That's really interesting because generally you would actually get the second affix there as well. Let's see if we can get it on the other one. There we go. So here we have 2 new affixes, and they are tier 5 and tier 1. So we are missing, what, tier 8 total tiers? If you're very lucky, just like with Weaver's items, like Weaver's Shield items, you can get up to double T7 here. Both of those affixes are kind of useless for me. So what I can do is for 500 Memory Ember, which is the currency that you can farm now for the faction, you can re-enchant this. So what it does, it just removes the existing affix or Weaver's Touch, and then it adds a new one. So when you get your perfect normal affixes, then you'll just keep re-enchanting until you hit very high Weaver's Touch and the correct affixes on the enchant affix, and then done. So this is going to be a big sink for the Memory Ember.
We did get a few teasers on some of the different affixes that you could see. We also have new Weaver small idols.
In these tombs and cemeteries, you can find new subtypes of these smaller idols. You can find minor, small. I think minor was small Lagonian previously, so we renamed that. And you see there's a different color affix on the top. So these idols have an exclusive better affixes compared to the non-Weaver version of these idols. And you will always be guaranteed to get at least one of these spare affixes on this, and sometimes you get two. And most of these are hybrid affixes and better versions of the existing ones, but there's also some new affixes here.
This is going to give you a lot of opportunity to really min-max the power of a single character, investing a bunch of effort into making really crazy idols. The next thing we saw was the crafting menu for exchanging woven echoes 3-1.
Not all of these woven echoes are going to be awesome for you. You might not like them, some of them. So what you can do is, you can just toss them here and exchange them and hope that you get better ones.
So this is going to be really nice if you're targeting the specific woven echoes that you're missing for filling out those Weaver points. The next bit of info was the set crafting. I don't think that there is really any new information here, but we did see the system in action and we saw a few set items. So the first one that we saw was the VILATRIA set. You'll probably notice that there is a pretty significant nerf on the set bonus here. It used to be 1 flat per int. Now it's 1 flat per 2 int. This is actually a really, really big deal. You're cutting the flat in half. I haven't seen all the other changes. Obviously, I'm not in CT, but this feels like a very, very large nerf to me. The next item that we saw was the Shattered Lance. It seems like the values on the hybrid affix are going to be a decent amount lower than just a single standalone affix. You can see here with the melee cold damage, but you do also have the hybrid component here with the health regen, so that's kind of interesting. You do also see here the set bonus itself. It has a cap now, and the values are changed a little bit, so depending on what you want to do, that may or may not be a good thing for you. The next one we saw was the Last Bears set. We saw a couple pieces from that. You can see on the chest here, we have endurance, physical damage, leech as health on hit. The gloves, you can see the health regen per point of strength and increased melee physical damage. The next bit of info we got was on the new LP gamble system.
If you find this with 1 LP, this is basically a dead item. This doesn't really have a use. 0 LP would be better because you could just toss it into the Nemesis deck and hope to get something good, or it would have to be at least like 3. So, one of the things coming this season is the ability to reroll the LP on uniques that have at least 1 legendary potential. If the legendary potential is not higher than the item when it's here in the woven potential bench, it's just gonna go to 0. And then you get another chance to upgrade through the Nemesis deck. Don't expect your red rings to get extra LP again, because they are already very unlikely to get it with LP to begin with.
So you could turn a 1 LP red ring into a 0 LP, which is probably what will happen as we saw in the demo. But there is a chance based on the LP potential of the item for it to go up. So it seems like if the Nemesis makes it legendary, it won't be useful for this reroll thing, which is fine because we actually have the next system here, the Woven Offering, that seems to be similar to the Divine Orb / Blessing Orb from PoE.
This allows you to sacrifice a unique or set or Weaver's Will item to reroll the implicit. So in here, the movement speed would be an implicit, and then the actual affixes as well. So I could use this to reroll the values here. And obviously, because this had everything perfectly rolled before, stuff went down.
That means that all of your failed slams have a use now. You can use them to recycle your existing items and have a chance to make them better rolls. The next thing was experimental crafting.
You put either boots, gloves, or belt here, and you can just pick the affix that you want to put onto your item now. And there's a couple things. So it has to have 2 prefixes, and then it randomly replaces one of those prefixes and puts the experimental affix there.
I see a few quick questions on these in the chat. Can you seal this mod?
Yes, with Cliff of Despair.
Yeah.
You can still seal it, but obviously that means that you cannot seal higher than a tier 4 experimental affix anymore.
So what we saw was that the Rune of Research and the Glyph of Insight have been removed from the game. And in exchange, we have a new mechanic accessed through the Woven Echoes. So the way it works is that you're replacing a prefix at random with a experimental affix of your choosing. Now the tiers on this are random. One thing that they did mention is you can actually seal these affixes with a Glyph of Despair, which makes it seem like to me that you can get the shards of these experimental affixes, because using the Glyph of Despair, you need to level up the affix tier, unless they just let you do it without shards. So something you currently can't do is slam affixes that a class cannot normally drop on a class locked unique.
So, to help out those monkey builds that people want to do, we have added a
Oh boy.
a way to swap the attribute between int, dex, strength, and attunement on items, regardless of that. So we have a nice tier 7 strength here. You know what? I want it to be int. And now I have a tier 7 int on a Sentinel body armor.
They did also mention if there are multiple affixes and you want to do this, you would pick the affix that you are rolling. So if there's strength and dex on an item, you can pick the dex and then re-roll it. Another thing I want to point out about this change is that you will want to add the other T7 attributes to your loot filter if you happen to be a attribute stacker. For example, if you want T7 dex gloves, you can filter for T7 int gloves, T7 strength gloves, and so on. Any of those gloves are now a potential useful upgrade for you, which means that it's much easier to gear attribute stacking characters than before. The next thing we saw was mana guide nerfs. Maybe it still does end up being strong. Either way, it is something that I want to play with next season, so stay tuned for that. The next thing we saw is what the Cocooned uniques actually are.
I believe the only way to obtain these is just a echo like objective. So one of the new objectives is to slay enemies until you find these Cocooned uniques. And so when you try to put this on, it just reveals a random unique.
So as you can see, it's basically just like a loot box. You have your Cocooned uniques, you roll them, and you get your unique. One thing that is really noteworthy about these uniques is that they have a increased chance to roll LP. The next thing we saw was that noteworthy events will now be displayed in-game if you're playing online.
Your hardcore deaths or achievements will also be in chat via announcements as well. That's something new to Season 2.
To close this out, we have a bunch of new information on the Weaver tree. A huge amount of the nodes were spoiled, so let's go through them now. One thing we learned in this podcast is what all of the different imprint things will do. So in addition to the weapons and jewelry we already saw, there's also armor and jewelry. We have another one for armor or weapon, and we have another one that will make champion items drop with a sealed affix from your item. We also got confirmation that you will still be able to wear the imprinted items while they are imprinted into the Weaver tree. The two small imprint slots are for Woven Echoes, and they did confirm that one of the Woven Echoes will be the spawn for Uberambaroth. So if you want, this is how you would target farm Uberoth, is by putting in the corresponding Woven Echo into those imprint slots, and then you're going to get more encounters with Uberoth. There's also a few different buffs to loot lizards, some info on the respec cost. This makes it seem like respecking is going to be pretty cheap compared to some of the other stuff that we've already seen. We also saw super beacons, which I'm guessing just reveals a much larger area than a regular beacon. We also saw a new theme of Weaver Tree nodes, where you can change the echo rewards that you normally see. This is very interesting because generally different players and even different item factions will want different types of echo rewards. For example, if you're playing COF, you may be very interested in the experience echo reward, whereas if you're playing MG, maybe you want gold or something like that. But this new set of nodes allows you to influence which Echo rewards you're seeing. So for example, if you block everything except experience, you'll be seeing a lot more experience tomes. And maybe with the experience tomes being very distant from center, where you get much more of them, this could be a viable endgame strategy for COF players to specifically target these experience tomes to help boost their prophecy activation. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for today. As always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.